Man, your intro gets better every time.
Hey, welcome one, welcome all to DeFi Crypto and Airdrops. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and with me today is Taylor, and Drew is joining us from the homestead where he's building fences. This is our Red Pill edition. So this is the show that we do whenever we want to talk about, highly charged, highly, conspiracy theories and conspiracy fact. It seems like they all become eventually. So how are you two doing today on this fine Sunday morning?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about our topic today.
I know you are. You got a hold of me last night and was like, we need to do a stream tomorrow and talk about the second Civil War. So how are you doing, Drew?
Good, man. Yeah, this is a combo I definitely want to have part in. It's the elites are extracting, the plebes have no retail money anymore, and I've been having a really insightful set of conversations over the past week about what I think is coming. So, I'm having fun here, still building and shit like that, but I will have you guys in my pocket, but also in my ear conversationally as I have all the tools in my hand here. But yeah, dude, let's get into it.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, I knew that you'd want to be in on this one. This is like right up your lane, and I know that without the Black Site show, you're somewhat limited on how deep you get on this stuff.
Yep, absolutely, man. So,
all right, well, Taylor, take it away. This is your emergency stream. We're just using my platform. Let's do this.
Okay, so I want people to understand how we can kind of understand these things and how you can kind of know what's going to happen in the future. Not exactly, but you can get a pretty good idea of what's happening. And I'm sure everybody that took a history class heard something like, well, history repeats itself. When I was in college, my professor was very keen on pointing out it doesn't repeat, it rhymes, it follows a pattern. Okay. And so we're going to jump into kind of how we can know this pattern, where it comes from, where you can kind of see it, but ultimately how we know we're heading towards a civil war scenario. And we'll get into this and we'll kind of go over the different things to go through. But I'm going to jump into some things like you can go to the Bible. The Bible talks about this I'm going to go through religious books so people can do it. They call it the covenant cycle. The covenant cycle is this idea that there's obedience, blessings, pride, justice, judgment, and exile and restoration.
Well, and keep one thing in mind. I mean, I know a lot of people get weird about, religion and stuff like that on both sides, non-religious and religious. Keep in mind, if you believe in, the Bible, Christianity, like in Islam, whatever, you can't ignore the fact that it is an historical document that is very closely guarded. Is it exact? Absolutely not. But it is a historical document that has been curated and taken care of over a very long period of time. So there is a lot of historical facts, proven historical facts in scripture. So go ahead.
Yeah. So like that, if you're not, into Christianity, well, the Tao Te Ching teaches it too. It refers to this as reversion. Okay. The Chinese I Ching was how they do feng shui, and it uses the same concepts, the cycles of order and disorder and balance. You can look at that book and kind of understand. The Quran also has an idea of the rise and fall of people. The books, though, that we're going to heavily focus on that kind of teach this is the Fourth Turning, because it's actually there's a Quran. The Fourth Turning here, and because it was written by two history professors, and I think most kids growing up and people watching today, they will go more with that because we were taught to think that way. And I'm also going to talk about this book, My Big Toe, with Thomas Campbell, how he kind of talks about this process and how it's the unfolding of everything in society. You can also understand this concept if you are big into the financial markets. These as fractal patterns. Everything follows fractal patterns. These are just fractal patterns themselves. And so Let me go with starting off with talking about a little bit about the fourth turning. I'm going to turn on my screen here so people can see this pattern that is taught in the fourth turning. So the fourth turning was written by William Strauss and Neil Howe. They were two professors at the time.
Can you zoom in on it a little bit?
Yeah, let me see if I can.
That bottom right hand. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Okay. So in the book, they basically explain everything through generations. Okay. They refer to a crisis scenario that happens in a generation that comes out of it they call the hero generation. Then there's a high, which is the progression upward that happens after a big crisis. There's usually a lot of prosperity.
Like the Renaissance.
Yeah, they refer to this as the artist's generation. You have an awakening, the prophet generation, an unraveling, the nomad generation, and then the new crisis starts over. The hero generation, it repeats this cycle. And
so if you learn history, you can see this pattern repeat. And the reason we're talking about this, if I want to preface all of this, this all is part of what Taylor is seeing right now with the whole potential for for civil war or just political unrest around the world. Is you have the crisis was in the past, one of them was the Dark Ages, and then you had the Renaissance right after that, which is the artists and the kind of the Great Awakening, and there was a lot of advances in medicine and science and things like that. And then then it reached a peak, and then of course we had different world wars and things like that, and it's just this sine wave that keeps repeating. So go ahead, Taylor.
And in their book, they said they called it a seculum. Seculum is a Roman term that means the life of a man, and they say this pattern goes through every 80 to 100 years. So you see down here, every 80 to 100 years, you can go back and you can see this in a society. For example, let's just use America. If from last year, if you went back 80 years ago, what happened 80 years ago in America? The year would have been 1945.
World War II.
World War II ended, right? We came out of that crisis. We're kind of going through this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly, if you go, what's 80 years before 1945?
That would be in the
Civil War.
Yeah,
1860. Civil War.
Yeah.
And if you go back 80 years before 1985,
1780 would be the American Revolution-ish.
Yes. And so you can see we followed this pattern in all three situations. This, what they call a seculum. And they're not saying this is like, for them, the argument was generations produce certain behaviors in children that produce certain things, and you have an economic component, which I'll jump to this. Next one here is also understood in Ray Dalio's book. He talks about what he calls the big cycle. Within a big cycle, it's about 200 to 250 years long, and it's the rise and fall of the civilization. And it's 3 seculums long. So 3 seculums play out, and you would have 3 cycles. If you follow Ray Dalio's, and if you ever listen to him speak, he's a big hedge fund guy. And I'm not saying he knows everything or, is the genius of all geniuses, but it's very convincing because he goes throughout history and shows how major financial systems basically collapse over this time period. Okay. So if you take America, you go from our first seculum, which was the Revolutionary War. We are ending our third. And according to his understanding of history, the big cycle that you would be seeing is the collapse of the dollar. Because this is kind of how we played it out. It kind of wrote it. The high period was during the midpoint, and then it's ultimately going to come to its end. And he explains that how that happens is by inflation, because eventually the government that controls the currency prints too much of it, deflates it, and puts it down here. Does it mean the civilization ends? No, because The big cycle before this, the major financial currency was the British pound, and it continued still. It just no longer was the world dominated currency. And so using this understanding, you can kind of see what is happening throughout the world and the patterns that are being followed. But ultimately, with the financial markets in America, the thing that you should be seeing right now, according to Ray Dalio, is high inflation happening.
Well, and this isn't the first time in history that this has happened. I mean, it repeats. I mean, everything. Once you start learning history, it's like that saying. Those that learn history are not doomed to repeat it. And I've heard it said the other way as well. But the summary of that is that if you learn history, you see these patterns. There is patterns in everything. This up and down. If you want to call it a sine wave, if you want to call it cyclical or cycle. Whatever you want to call it, these things repeat. The inflation, the Roman Empire, towards the end of the Roman Empire, if you're in crypto and you're into money, you've heard about these, like the clipping of coins. They started to reduce the amount of silver and gold that were in the coins. And then after that, they started clipping them. And those little ridges that you see around the edges of coins, modern coins, that's what that heralds back to. Is if a coin didn't have those ridges, it meant that somebody had clipped the edges off, just so slightly, because it might not be a lot on one coin, but if you're doing that with every coin that you come across, then you end up with a pile of gold or silver.
It's like that scheme in Office Space.
Exactly. That ended up like ending horribly.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, why I think, because I was watching a talk by Ray Dalio about a year ago, and he started talking about how he thinks that kind of the most correlated thing that you can go back in history and look at is it looks like we're entering another civil war period. And he talks a lot about the divisions that are going on. So I want to compare why I think he's right now. At first I was kind of like, I don't know. I think I think America is, but I'm not saying like tomorrow we're going to start killing each other in the streets. And that's not what happens, but that doesn't what happens at the beginning. But the thing to understand of what starts civil wars is when people feel like the lawful remedies are being exhausted, and the key thing, legitimacy in your government collapses. And those are the two big things that really begin this process. And so if you go back to the Civil War, let's think about the three main things that existed at that time. First, there was complaints that the elite captured most of the institution. So the big two kind of evil things of the time during the Civil War was, of course, slavery, using humans as chattel. And if you want to get into maybe things that are going on today, that there was slavery, but not only was that the elites were sexually abusing their slaves. That was a huge argument. I think I need to get the guy's name, but there's a man that used to there was one congressman that would constantly get up and talk in Congress about this. And he used every opportunity to expose the crimes of the elites in Congress, but it was falling on deaf ears. He couldn't get anybody to act.
Well, because all of them were, most of them were part of it. It's starting to appear anyway.
Yeah. And then the northern financial institutions were financially benefiting from the slavery, but they were also engaging in very, predatory practices. Laws didn't apply to them. Everything seemed to benefit the elite. The second thing that was going on is, even though this was being exposed, there was no enforcement happening. The abolitionist newspapers came out and were trying to expose it. But no matter how much anything was being exposed, nothing would happen to these people, because the enforcement arm was basically taken over by them.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you know, if you have the people that are supposed to be, creating the laws and enforcing the laws, that hold our society together, and they're the ones that are guilty of the crimes, the whole system breaks. Another thing I want to point out about the Civil War too, and revolutions throughout history, is usually when it becomes more painful, like right now, people are feeling pain, but not real pain. And I don't, I don't mean to, diminish what people are
We
feeling.
should though. We should diminish that shit though, because it's gonna get worse.
Oh
People
no,
need
no,
to fucking
that's
harden up.
yeah, no, absolutely, Drew. What were you saying?
People need to harden the fuck up. I mean, they're out here complaining about, you know, things not going to the moon, or, it's our fault that these fucking politicians are the way that they are. It's our fault for not hanging all of them. It's our fault for not deputizing sheriffs locally and just literally using what's in our constitution to recapture our government. It's our fault. It's our fault for not doing those things. People need to get ready. Everything you guys are saying is accurate. I really wish me and my wife's conversation was recorded about this, because I want to have a degree of optimism. Like maybe they're just going to keep cooking the books, right? But I mean, I don't think we're ready for this point. But like, think about the money supply going parabolic, and everyone's like wondering where the money's going. It's going to robots. It's going to replacement of everyone. It's going to AI. And once AI hits that parabola of being instituted into society, the people that used to make up what the economy was will no longer have a job or monetary velocity to go back into the economy. And so the explosion of AI, and we can talk about this on a biblical standpoint too, the explosion up in AI is going to cause the collapse. It's going to bring people to their knees, and then this government will come with the universal high basic income on a USDC wallet from Donald Trump. This is fantastic. Believe me, everyone will fucking be on their knees begging for just a little bit of money because everyone's overextended ourselves. You have to, like, there's a concept: collapse now and beat the rush. It's the same shit as like rich dudes who will just pay some fucking plumber to come in to do something simple because they can afford it. How about you learn how to do that shit yourself instead of being a limp-wristed bitch? I'm sorry to go off on it, but I don't want us to be sensitive to people, because everyone's fallen for narratives. Everyone's fallen for the idea that we can vote our way out of this shit. We cannot vote our way out of this. And the cycle, the 80-year cycle, is something that is a very powerful thing that Jeff was talking about, that it's almost unavoidable. And now we are on a quickening pace because of AI and robotics moving information faster, building out new technology faster. And so, like, I don't know, I think I can make money off of this, but it really begs the question of what are my kids going to do? What the hell are my kids going to do in an economy that doesn't have the use case for humans? Right?
Yeah. No, and Taylor's been talking about that for a while. When he ran for mayor, that was, kind of one of the things he was talking about, was the rise of AI and robotics, and and how that's going to affect our society, how it's going to have to evolve to adapt. But kind of what I was getting back to was really just the pain. So as long as people are comfortable, and that's why we are given a lot of the public assistance, the SNAP benefits and housing, and the entertainment, the music and the sports, and back in the Roman times they had the Colosseum, they gave out bread at the Colosseum. All of that was a political stunt to keep the masses happy, because they understood the true power rested with the people. And so they understood, if we keep the people happy, we keep this all together, and we can, we have our power, we have our money. But if they get to a point to where they are unhappy enough, or that they are struggling enough to where it benefits them more to tear the system down than it does to live in the system, that's the crux. That's the tipping point. And I'm not saying that we're there, and I'm not saying that we should, do any of this, but I'm pointing out that throughout history, this is exactly the things that Taylor's talking about. This is exactly the things that occur throughout history over and over again that lead up to political upheaval, revolutions, things like that, civil wars.
Yeah, and so we're now in this part where, okay, the good thing is like now in the past. So what's the differences today? So we don't have to go through another civil war, because I'll tell you right now, if we do, it ain't gonna be. It'll be way worse than the Civil War before if we end up at that point. But that's where these things end up, and I'll get into my big toe. And my big toe is Thomas Campbell. He's a physicist. He explains his theory of everything. That's what toe stands for. And so I'll explain why there's no guarantee that this won't end up really bad. But what can we do today? So the difference back in the day is, one of the ways that you fix these problems is like what you guys are talking about, which is you have to get the truth out. But back in the day, you couldn't get information to the people. It was very difficult. I mean, not everybody would read a newspaper. Most people couldn't read. And so you ran into those problems. So if you continue to try to get this information out, well, no one really knew what was going on. Well, today, it's completely different. We have the ability. Why I think we have an opportunity to actually see the change that we're going to need is because, like, finally, I feel like when I go online, you see people generally now are waking up. And that's kind of one of the first steps of actually causing change, is there has to become awareness of what's actually going on. And I'm going to try to explain it the best I can to go through this. But ultimately, I think we still have one way to get this done. We can all agree right now, our executive branch and our legislative branch are completely overrun. I mean, the good people in Congress, they still have some power. I mean, Thomas Massey has been able to get us the Epstein files, and certain congressmen, people that are up there, they're trying to do it. They're trying to get us the information. But ultimately, we know when these election cycles come that if the choice is going to be Republican or Democrat, you're just going to get the same old, same old. It's just going to keep repeating until we actually get this change that we need to get in here.
Well, I think it's obvious that we don't choose our politicians. They're chosen for us. I mean, on the, Democrats and Republicans. I mean, look at the choices they give us. One, we've talked about this before. These are the Harris and Trump were the best that this country has to offer. And you watched it, Bernie Sanders, I don't like, I would never vote for the guy, but I mean, he was the most popular choice, for the Democrat Party, and somehow freaking Hillary, ended up being the nominee that year. So, it's obvious that we do not choose our candidates. They're chosen for us. And it's debatable, but there's evidence to support it. Like Deadwood saying in the chat, voting, the tabulators are rigged. Dominion founded by two Venezuelans, funded on a by the Clinton Foundation, manufactured in China, built in Canada, and owned by Soros in Canada. What do you have to say about that, Drew?
Well, I mean, we've been clearly fucked for like at least 8 years, and voting's done. It's so maddening that we've known this for so long and nobody still cares. I know we like go online and we see like Satan's trending and Goyim trending and XRP's trending, and we're like, all right, it's the end of the world. People are awake. But then, we've known about these Dominion systems for being fraudulent for 8 years. And then when I got banned off the internet for talking about it, I was like, okay, I'm like 100% sure I'm right about this, because Alphabet's ready to literally just dust me off the internet for talking about it. So we have a broken system. God, I mean, I want to say that there's so much that I want to say that will get us eviscerated.
Oh, dude,
Um,
you know
You
me. We're not
it is
monetized.
our constitutional right to organize militia and to keep government in check. And yeah, they have F-22s and stuff. Are they going to bomb everything, carpet bomb everything? No. I mean, we're probably going to go to war with China and Iran while this is all going on. They're going to be busy overseas, and then the grid will go down here at the height of our civil unrest, and then it'll be whoever has gotten their shit together in their local community that has even a fighting chance.
Well,
That's
I
what I
want
could
to warn people of that route, because you got to know what an egregore is. An egregore is an ancient concept that is understood that humans collectively organize under a group consciousness. Okay. Group consciousness idea is that there are actual entities or things that are created by human consciousness that actually physically can manifest itself, like what people refer to as like the devil, what is it? I forgot the term, Mephilophenes. I think no, that's not what it's called. But let's go back into understanding Frankism, which is what most people are seeing that the elites practice in. Now, Frankism is a ancient kind of secrecy society that they call it Frankism because the man that kind of resurrected it during the 1700s, and people believe that that's where like the Illuminati and everything come from. He was a Jewish man that claimed that he was starting to receive revelation that truly what God wanted you to do was to break the laws, meaning sin, and that true power comes when you sin and you break the laws, and that those are the people that are given power and are actually redeemed. And what an egregore is an egregore is that human consciousness creates an entity that exists on a different plane, the astral plane. That is what people refer to, and that it exists there and only can exist through human energy, meaning it feeds off of us. And it feeds off of you three ways. And egregore, the concept, has been understood for thousands of years. It's in every religion. If egregores are, angels and demons, they're supposed to be good ones and bad ones. It isn't just like a one-sided thing here. It's this concept that there are these actual conscious energies that exist that they need us in order to exist. First, the way that it can gain energy from you, it needs you to believe in it. And so, a common example of an egregore would be a sports team. A sports team forms a conscious group, a bunch of humans come together, and then it needs rituals, needs you to do things to give it energy. And so, sports teams generate that through symbols, through rituals of going to these games and combining your energy together. Religions do it too through rituals. But so do the satanic ones.
If you've ever gone to like a music concert, you can feel it. I mean, when you go, into there and the music starts, you can feel like an energy that rises, with the excitement or whatever you want to call it.
It's much more intense than when you just listen to that song by yourself.
Well, and then you look at churches. When you read the scriptures, if you're a religious person, you read the scriptures, it might be powerful, but you go to a church, especially the ones where everyone gets very excited, where they're speaking in tongues and, all that stuff. And you see people breaking into tears and, there is a real energy that comes from, I don't know if we emit it or where it's from, but it's undeniable.
Yeah, in everybody's experienced it. If you've been obsessed with a sports team like I have, you've experienced it. If you've been religious like me, you've experienced it. The third way
look at
that
these people at these riots and demonstrations. It's they have that energy, and then you have a couple of people that come in and start poking it, and start saying, we're not going to put up with this, and they one person throws the first brick, and all of a sudden, everything breaks out.
Yeah.
It's
Now the third way, let me get the third one so you guys
all right,
understand,
sorry, go ahead.
is sacrifice. And that's why religions require sacrifices. Religions are usually everything is governed by egregores. So if you don't like the word, I mean, it's an old Greek word that people use. You can use group consciousness if it makes you feel more. Don't worry about the word. Worry about the concept, which is this group consciousness can take on the life of its own. Political parties have these group consciousness, and they can control you, and they can make you do things you wouldn't do normally. That's why you see like people at these rallies all of a sudden just become crazy, and they just start becoming violent, and they do things that normal, and they're like, I have no idea what overcame me. I just, this is kind of what happened, and I don't know. Or even at sporting events, people can get to a point where they become violent, and why do you care that you're this bunch of dudes on this field lost the game? It's like you didn't. Like,
yeah, I never understood. You know me. I've never watched sports. I've never gotten into sports. I never saw the point. It's going to I like going to hockey games because you can go there, you can curse and nobody cares, and you can drink beer. So I'll go to a hockey game, but I go for the fights. I don't go for the hockey.
Yeah. Well, you're just enjoying the event. Like you can be at events and I'm not trying to say this is evil or wrong, to understand that there are group consciousness that take on their own life. But there are very evil ones that these elites really believe in. You might not believe in this, what I'm trying to tell you. But when you're reading the Epstein files and you're reading about how they have these rituals, they're sacrificing children, they believe in this. Like they are doing this to gain energy from that egregore. And it looks, I mean, it's hard to deny this, that there isn't something actually giving them power.
Well, look at the Epstein files that just came out. I was watching a guy this morning on X, this black guy at the airport, and he was going off. He's like, all of you are just sitting here like like everything's normal. They just released the Epstein files. They're sacrificing children. They're like eating children. I don't care if we get banned. I mean, this is real things that's going on, and this is all part of that the sacrifice thing that you're talking about. They do believe in some power, and that's going to give them power and money and eternal life or youth. That adrenochrome that's people talk about all the time. I guess there's some way that they like scare I guess it's especially powerful in like younger children, but they scare the shit out of them, and I guess it releases adrenaline, and there's a chemical compound that has like I don't know about anti-aging, but it basically well, they call it an anti-aging, has anti-aging properties.
Yeah, well, it like they believe in among their thing that the ultimate way to get the ultimate energy is child sacrifice. That is where you will get the most power that you can give if you're willing to do that. That whatever egregore that governs them, what I imagine most people would call it Satan or whatever you want to refer to it, but whatever it is, as gives them the power and gives them financial wealth to an extreme. And this is, whether you believe it or not, this is what they believe, and this is what they're doing, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. Is they're doing it for power.
I mean, watch all these performers. I mean, it's like you see it over and over. And I'm not a religious person. I'm agnostic. I don't believe in any religion. But you watch these music awards and stuff, and these performances that the Lady Gaga and all of them. I mean, they're basically playing out like rituals, like satanic rituals and shit.
Yeah, there's I forgot his name. I think it's Faust that talked about the egregore I guess, why can I say it? Mephistopheles.
Oh, Mistopheles?
Mephistopheles is,
Yeah.
he said it's an egregore that basically functions out of keeping you distracted. Its whole function and goal is to deceive the masses so they cannot pay attention to what's going on. And he does this through your cell phone, through social media, video games, anything to keep you not on the path of consciously progressing yourself, evolving yourself, becoming better. And according to Faust, he is the most successful one. He isn't the one that causes chaos. He has no interest in the in bloodshed and things like that. He doesn't. According to, I'm acting like it's
very simple.
whatever this entity that exists, but he talks about, Faust talks about it, that he made a deal with it, but ultimately it is the most successful of all the egregores in keeping you tied to your ego. And that is the key. That is how you lose power, is when you get tied into your ego. But
Elise in the chat over on the arena brought up a good point. You know, if you think about it, our society has been sacrificing children for decades. How many children have been aborted before ever given a chance to be born? You know, I mean, that's very true.
That is a form of child sacrifice. I mean, but every society, the elites have always done. I mean, the Aztecs, when the Spanish arrived, that they were just sacrificing. I mean, their temple was spilling with blood.
Yeah, they're enemies, like hundreds and thousands. You know, they would just endless. You know, like one after another. They were sacrificing people, cutting out their heart. You know, all that stuff. You know,
and I want you to think about, if every society has been doing this, and you know from yourself and people that you know, this is not normal human behavior.
No.
You know, this is something very sick. And why do the elites do it? Because very apparently, they very much believe that that's how they gain their powers, allegiance to this egregore. That's this group consciousness that they all ascribe to. And the argument is that these certain secret societies, you know, they're secret societies. I don't know which one belongs to what, but that it actually does give them power, and they believe that. And that's why you're reading what you're reading, and that's why you see what you see. And that's why ultimately what we're going to talk about here, of how do you really solve the problem without just replacing it with another group of elites. Because, you know, fighting civil wars and more just seem to replace the, you know, we go from one elite group to another elite group who are all kind of continuing the same tradition. And so if we're just going to keep following the same pattern, and we can look throughout in history and see, if we fight a civil war, the guys you're going to replace them with are going to just be another group that do this.
And now that brings up a really good question. You know, is that a product of, you know, like their, you know, the position just, you know, brings that out of people, or just, you know, people that get put into power, you know, are put there in a very conscious way by the elites? You know, because sometimes I wonder if people get into these positions, and then those powers, you know, just understand the influence that, you know, that office or that state, you know, that station, you know, it feeds the ego, and they know how to use that to, you know, to basically, you know, farm these people to do their will. So, I mean, do you believe that it's as simple as, you know, they put people in those positions, or they just don't even care who gets put in the position, because they know eventually they can either manipulate them through, you know, coercion or blackmail, or, you know, something like that, or feeding their ego, you know, with money or more power, so that,
Well, the answer
and if they won't, you know, fall into line, they destroy them, you know, financially, politically, you know, personally, you know, all of that.
Yeah, it's both, because ultimately it all resolves around the same problem. And the thing I want to stress to people, and that's why if you don't do it the right way, which ultimately for us as humans, we're going to have to figure out how to do it the right way of overcoming it, or we just replace the cycle with the same groups. And ultimately, that should lead us to this book, My Big Toe. All right. Theory of Everything. Great book by Thomas Campbell. And Thomas Campbell he was part of the people that started the Gateway Project. He was a physicist that also had the ability to come out of his body and go on the astral plane, and did some crazy stuff. And ultimately, he created his understanding of what everything's going on. And I'm going to share the understanding, because I think, once again, all these are just ideas. How things really work, I think, are beyond human mind understanding. I don't think you're going to ever, your human mind is never going to understand how the universe ultimately works, in a sense. But take this as a general understanding of, like, okay, what is the universe doing? And his argument that he makes is the universe is constantly has a goal. The ultimate goal is the evolution of consciousness. And he goes all the way back to the beginning of the universe. When the universe first began, it started off, as atoms coming together, forming what we call population 3 stars. Those population 3 stars then exploded, putting heavier elements into the universe, which he calls low entropy states, high entropy states, going back and forth between this in order to create more complex systems. And that's ultimately how the universe is functioning, according to his worldview. What he's saying, he's seeing, is that you have the goal is evolution of consciousness. It does it through experience, feedback, understanding, intent, action, and feedback. So you start off with high entropy states, chaotic states. Okay. As things organize itself. And that's why he would say we live in a conscious universe, because things should not go from high entropy states to low entropy states. Consciousness organizes itself and forces things to enter a low entropy state. But there's a point where that entropy starts to break down and it enters back into a high entropy state. And either the things survive that or they don't. And the universe really doesn't care what continues on or doesn't continue on, other than that the whole system continues. And so it keeps fracturing itself into multiple different things, entering high to low entropy states. And so you could say, well, if you look at the universe, how it grew up, it grew, and then it formed planets. And then once these planets formed, they formed planets that could form life. And then when life came about, it starts at at high entropy states, goes to lower entropy state, evolves itself into what we have today. And humans, we do this going from high entropy states to low entropy states. We started off as tribes. That would be a very high entropy states where it's very chaotic. We evolved to form these group consciousness, what you refer to as egregores, whatever it may be, an ability that we have to live together in peace. And we enter these low entropy states, but the whole point of the system is that it continues to go with this pattern, and it's going to keep these in our system because it's the point of the universe. So if you think that you're going to, through violence, be able to replace the system and create a non-violent, society, it ain't going to work.
No.
But ultimately,
violence is always part of our society. It's always going to be part of our society. It's about who's inflicting violence on who at whatever point in history.
Yeah, I think
it has to do with frequency and intensity.
Yeah, it's like we live in the most peaceful time ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, as humans, we've been progressing slowly. We've been able to. We don't live in cities with walls around them anymore for a reason, like because we don't have to, because we have more peaceful, stable societies. But that isn't a guarantee. It very well could completely start over and go, well, humanity doesn't. There's all these arguments that humanity's already gone through this multiple times. And when you look back through history, maybe the pyramids are a lot older than what they say they are, that humanity got to a very progressed level, but then was wiped out for whatever reason.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know. I don't have enough information for myself to know for sure, but I would probably guess, if we're going to go with the fact that humans in our current state have been around for 200,000 years.
Well, I mean, there is mounting evidence. I mean, that keeps disproving, what we previously thought. Glotobioteki, the pyramids. There's a bunch of monolithic structures that they're starting to find that are, showing that people were a lot more advanced than they thought. In kind of prehistory. Greater than 13,000, to 15,000 years ago. So, yeah, it's, because really, if you look at known, kind of known and proven history is, you look at the Mesopotamians, they were kind of the first ones that built, a huge civilization that had mathematics and, written language and agriculture and all that stuff. And they just kind of poof showed up out of nowhere. So where did they come from? Was it an individual, a group of people that just suddenly had this knowledge and was able to galvanize people like that? Or was there civilizations before that got destroyed and people survived from that, came together and started, basically tried to restart in the, Mesopotamian area, which is down in like Iran, Iraq, that area.
Yeah. And so, and I personally believe that that's the case, is that we are, that as humans, we've done this multiple times and we've been wiped out for whatever reason. And we've lost that kind of history of what's going on. But the key thing to understand,
there's flood theories, all around the globe in, ancient cultures. You hear about it in the Bible. You hear about it, India. I can't pronounce the name of their religious text, but
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. There's stories, all throughout, cultures around the world, in South America, North America, they all talk about a great catastrophe, a great flood. And
I got a theory. I got an opinion.
go ahead.
Sure.
I think it's fucking demons, and everyone calls them aliens, and they come institute their technology and flex their power, push people's greed and their ego to the extreme on a cyclical basis to rinse and repeat. That's me. I know there's a lot of like nihilist approach to what's going on or whatever. I don't think that you can answer these questions without God. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So that's the idea of an egregore. It's a demon. Or an angel. It's non-human intelligence, aliens, all these things. Actually, there's a very interesting correspondence among a bunch of secret societies that they needed to create an egregore that would be aliens, because that is how they could gain the most control over all of humanity. And that they were going to create these things through the process of belief, rituals, and sacrifice in order to make all of humanity fall under their power, because of the fear that they could create of non-humans. Because they ultimately saw, well, what is the ways that you create high entropy states is through chaos, fear, and selfishness. Low entropy states are when societies exist that are coherent, they're transparent, and accountable.
Well,
and
look what's going on right now. Look at what media does. Look at what the Hollywood elites, whenever they get up and accept their awards. Look at the politics. All of it feeds that.
Michael, they say you can actually. I was reading a book about if you want to know if these things actually exist, because you can see them when you create them, but you have to do it with a group of people. I'm not going to tell people how to do it, because I don't want people doing it, because because it can be terrifying. But there are books out there about you can create them and you can actually see them when you do this with a group of people. And people refer to it as magic or whatever you want to call it. But once again, just terms. But ultimately, what I want people to understand, if we don't fix the underlying problem, and the underlying problem is not outside of you. So since most people are Christian, let's go to Christ and let's listen to what Christ was trying to teach, because contrary to what you're taught at church, I was taught it too. Christ didn't come to create a religion. He came to, and he taught this concept of what is referred to as ego annihilation, which is ego is the sense that you have that you are an individual and completely separate from everything else. We have these physical bodies. We have that voice in our head. These are all things to make you believe that you aren't somehow connected to all, but that's not what Christ was trying to teach. Christ was trying to teach us that, there's a very famous, or I shouldn't say famous, it's in the scriptures. The Pharisees come to Christ. They say, "Who are you?" And he says, "I am that I am." I am is the statement of being that God told Moses when he was on Mount Sinai. He says, "I am that I am."
All that.
Yeah. He is being existence. It is, you are that I am. You are not God. I want to be very clear. But just so people aren't running out here going, "Hey, I'm God." Okay. All right. This is how you know that you are more than your physical body. Stop for 1 second and get very quiet.
And take mushrooms. No.
Take shrooms, you'll find out. No. You will have a voice in your head talking to you. Well, if you just take a second and think about that, who is it talking to? If you are the voice in your head. Now, of course, the voice in your head is part of you, but it's talking to you and it's constantly narrating to you what to think. And I call it the bastard in my head for a reason, because he's a fucking liar. He lies all the time to me.
The dark passenger.
Yeah. It's constantly, the voice, and you'll notice the louder it gets is usually getting you to, complain about something, to think of the past or the future, not live your life in any way. It is a tool. It is part of our experience of being human that keeps you in your ego.
Well, there's a Native American proverb. I don't know what to call it, but it's the story of the two wolves, and it's basically the whole premise of it is there's a dark wolf and a white wolf, and the dark wolf represents the evil inside of us, the envy, the lust, all those things, and then you have the white wolf, which is all the good things, love and compassion and things like that. And the young man is talking to the elder and is like, how do I ensure that the white wolf is has the loudest voice, it has the strongest influence over my actions and my words. And the wise man says it depends on which one you feed. Whichever one you feed is going to be the strongest. If you're constantly feeding the dark wolf, with envious thoughts and actions and lust filled things and things like that, then that's going to be the powerful one, and it's going to overwhelm you. If you feed the white wolf with good things, with compassion and love and charity and all that things, then that's the one that's going to be strongest.
Yeah. So let's get back to Christ, what he was trying to teach. And so the Pharisees then says that they pick up stones to stone him, and he says, "Why are you going to stone me?" And they say, "Thou being a man makest thyself God." And it doesn't end there. That's how usually a pastor or anybody will end the story. See, Christ is God. End story. You're not part of, you're divine. But then he says, what stops them from throwing the stones is it not written in your scriptures that ye are gods? Now I want to make something very clear. You are not God. God is the one, the whole, the all of all things. It is being. Okay. But you are part of it. And what Christ was trying to teach was you are not separate from the all. You are part of it. Okay. Human beings are part of God. Okay. Your consciousness, that awareness that you are listening to the voice in your head, that is you. That is the essence of you. That is your soul, whatever you want to think, but it is ultimately part of God. Okay. And Christ was trying to teach us this idea that you are part of everything, and that you within you. This is the thing that ultimately ended my belief, or my religious, my being religious. I was Mormon, and so ultimately I would go to church, and they would tell me constantly, do all these things, do all these. You got to believe in this. You got to do these rituals.
You got to pay your
and you gotta
tithing. You got
sacrifice
to go to
these
the
things.
temple, and
Yeah, all the things to create an egregore. And he goes, do all that, and then someday in the future you'll get to go to what they call the celestial kingdom. And so I would do all those things.
Yeah.
And then I'd read the words of Christ, and Christ would say things like,
There's contradictions. Yeah.
Yeah, the kingdom of God is within you. Well, I'm like, well, that's confusing, because all religions are teaching me is that I'll go to heaven someday, and here's Christ saying, no, it's within you.
Yeah.
It is now. And he would say, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, which means now.
Yeah.
And it's this idea that Christ taught that you are either in heaven and hell now. It isn't some future event. Time is an illusion that you experience through physical matter, because ultimately, if you go back to what Einstein proved, physical matter, time and space, or gravity are all the same thing. They're all one thing. He mathematically proved it. And so your experience physically is that, oh, someday I'll get there, someday. And it's like, no, you can experience it now. And it is when you dissolve the ego, when you stop, when you become that awareness and stop listening to the voice in your head, when you stop thinking that, oh, I got to do this or that to be happy.
That's honestly, that's when I found peace. You know, when I stopped, chasing everything. I mean, I still aspire to do things and to grow and improve, but when I got off that hamster wheel of trying to chase everything that we're told is going to make us happy, when I stopped living in the past and dwelling in the past and living in the moment, and just fully embracing the now, it's that's when I found the most peace and the most happiness.
Yes. And so ultimately, what is going to bring about the change in humanity that will actually work? Like right now, we still have a chance. Read the Constitution, the first, few words. We the people, not your government. We the people can make this change. All right. And how do you do that? Well, first, if I had an ability to tell everybody, is people in my profession, lawyers, we need to come up with a way to actually go after, and not just sit around and go, well, maybe someday, the government will go after these people. We can go after certain people. In the judicial system, there still is an arm of the government that functions, that will uphold the law, but you got to go through it. The problem right now is a lot of the evil is coming from large institutions. Mm-hmm. And we put it upon attorneys saying, well, most people don't have enough money to bring actions against large institutions. And so attorneys have to take it on contingency fees. Well, here's the problem when you're an attorney. You spend $1 million, maybe $2 million going after a large organization. Well, that organization is ultimately your master, because at the end of the day, you want money from them. And the only way that you can force money out of them is through the legal process. Oh, okay, let's say it takes a decade. Well, most firms can't afford a decade of financing all their attorneys to get ultimately at the end. So they have to settle.
Well, that's what Kevin, that's what he's trying to fight. That's why he's, tokenizing that legal fund.
I know, I'm trying to get him to maybe do a sub fund that will be based upon not making profit, but demanding change out of certain organizations.
Yeah.
Like making them actually sign agreements that they will absolutely discontinue this behavior, or they will, you can sue them under a breach of contract. But ultimately, that's one way, my profession, I can start doing. I've been talking to Kevin about this, about like, this is our problem. We're always going to be beholden to these institutions unless we have a way to finance attorneys to bring actions that don't require them to settle, that ultimately require them, or ultimately the goal is to demand change. The second thing is we can still amend our Constitution. Like,
well, I think it's important that people, realize the power that we have as individuals. I know a lot of people out there, think that, what can I do? It's, I'm not in a position of power. I'm not in a position of wealth. I'm a single mom, or, I'm a mechanic, or, they just have this helpless feeling where it's just like, I just have to, exist, and I have to survive. We all have the power to be the change that we want. Focus on yourself, focus on being a better person, being more charitable. I was just saying in the chat, that's why I do this channel. It cost me money to do this channel, but I do that, on purpose. I don't want to monetize it. I don't want it to be about my ego. I don't want it to be about, me enriching myself. I want to use it as a platform to educate people, to give them knowledge, to show them how to homestead, to show them how to invest and improve their life. That's what we need to do as individuals, is find a way that you're passionate about to try to make a positive change. There is far too much negativity, and do not allow that voice in your head that Taylor talked about, the media, the elites, all the tools that they use to manipulate and get you emotional, to get you fighting each other. Resist that at all costs. And a key to that is learning how to control your emotions. Do not allow yourself to get emotional, because as soon as you do, you are highly able to be highly manipulated. So learn discipline. That is
negative emotion. There's good emotion.
There is good emotion, and you should feel it. You should still have emotions and feel it. Just don't allow it to influence you to do things that are, bad or immoral, or, whatever it is that, is going to make things worse for yourself and those around you. So I call it my sphere of influence, is, the things that I focus on is trying to make positive change to things I directly have influence over. I can't control, myself, I can't control what happens in Washington. I can, however, control the information that I put out.
Yeah.
So that's what I do to try to, affect change in that. So
yeah. And like in Lord of the Rings, Gandalf says, like, when he's talking and he's explaining that he doesn't believe that you need some, big organization or something, or big power to overcome evil. It's done by the little acts of just ordinarily good people. And that is what overcomes. And really, that is the first step, is focus. You don't need to start some big organization. You don't need to do those things. We all need to focus on ourselves. One, and when I mean focus on yourself, I mean focus on growing your own, soul, conscious, whatever you want to call it. And you do that through minimizing distractions.
Mm-hmm.
You do that by doing the things that better yourself. And this is something I have to work on myself, which is like, I get home at night and all I want to do is just sit there and doom scroll. And I'm like, well, that really doesn't do anything for me. It's funny because when I do that, I feel more exhausted than when I go and do jujitsu.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing in the world. I can go do jujitsu and I'll feel alive and active and everything. But if I stay home, lay on my bed and just doom scroll, I'm just drained.
It's emotionally draining. And, if you want to call it spiritual, if you want to call it just, energy, whatever you want to call it, it really does drain the energy out of you.
Yeah. And so it's like, if if you're going to be on and do it, I'm not saying you can't find things that inspire you, that help you move forward, that are encouraging. My wife's amazing at this. Like, she just does not do any like of the negative, like social media. If she's on something, she is watching a video about how do I get better at photography? How do I do this? And I'm like, man, I wish I was like her. I'm on there watching Epstein file things.
Oh, dude, all of her posts, all of her posts are, about you and the kids, and, like, the vacations that you're on, and, the, jujitsu and wrestling, and, pictures. So she got into photography, and, taking really cool pictures of, like the wrestling matches. And
yeah, like, and so like, so focus on, overcoming your own ego. That is anything that gets you to think that you are separate from everything else. Like, it's, hey, if it's the voice in your head that won't shut up, I'll tell you, I've learned mine. I had to learn how to meditate, because when I wake up in the morning, mine will not shut up. It constantly is nagging me. Understanding what emotions are used to control you, like fear. Every scripture, I mean, I have studied every religious text there is. The most common statement in all of scripture is fear not. Fear is one of the things. Shame is another common controlling emotion. We've all made mistakes. Get over your past. If you made mistakes, you've done things wrong, get over it, because everybody's done it. Like, there's not one perfect person walking this earth right now. And so get over that feel, like, get out of your past, and learn to live right now. Life is beautiful and wonderful if you live it. It's, the problem is your head wants you to live in the past or the future. So I was like, well, do this and do this, so someday you can have this and that. It was like, right now, live your life, enjoy your life now, and get away from.
Well, and I've heard that multiple times from multiple places, and it's kind of like a mantra that I've adopted as well. Is, if you if you're living for the future, then you are anxious, because you're always chasing, and you see it in people. And if you're living in the past, you're living it with regret. You're constantly going over what you did wrong that you can do nothing to change. You're just going to keep processing. I should have done this. I should have said that. I shouldn't have done this. And it's an exercise in futility. The only thing you can do from the past is learn from it, and work for a better future. But like I said, the strongest, most powerful thing that I've found, in people that are the most happy, is they just enjoy where they're at. All these people that chase vacations, that are constantly, trying to go on their next trip, you see them and they're a nervous wreck. They're constantly trying to find happiness in the next trip, instead of just enjoying where they're at with the people that they're with, and just being in the moment. No matter where you're at, just, look around you, take it all in, because that moment is never going to come again. If you have kids, that moment they're born, that only happens once, for that kid. When they leave home, that only happens once, for that kid. Those moments are one and done. So stop thinking about that time coming, because, that's going to ruin the moment, because you're constantly going to be thinking about the future, not enjoying the moment. So, and you can look back and you can enjoy memories, but look at them as a slideshow. You can't change the image. You can't change what happened, but you can enjoy the memory of it.
Mm-hmm. No, it is.
As long as you're not being a prick the whole way.
Well,
some people have horrible snapshot.
That's what I enjoy. I enjoy being an asshole along the way.
He's an expert at it. Like,
I am. I'm really good at it. It's an art, Yeah. I wasn't born with this gift. I cultivated over years.
Well, you got Jeff so riled up that one time. I've never seen Jeff that riled up before, and I had to finally interject in our message thing and be like, Jeff, Mike does this out of pure enjoyment. He doesn't disagree with you. He's just doing this because he knows you are so passionate about it.
Well, Oh, go ahead.
But I was like trying to explain, like, our family, when we grew up, it wasn't about being right. It was just about causing confrontation. Like that was.
Well, and not in a negative way. It's like the reason that I do it is because people, if you can get somebody emotional, it strips away that logic and that reason, and it's very truth telling. They'll say things that is the basis for their actual thought processes. And then if you can get them to that place and then back them off and be like, all right, while you were worked up, you were saying this, and this, is that, kind of how you came to, your thought process? Because you see it a lot and it tends to be a lot more with people on the left, is, a lot of their basis for why they think the way they do so passionately is emotion based. If you talk to them, it's everything is about emotion.
Yeah.
And if you take away the emotion and you start presenting facts, then
It pisses them off. No.
yeah, no, it
That's
does.
crazy. I thought they were just retarded. That's really interesting to hear.
No, it's all about emotion. They don't have emotional control, and so
But both sides do that.
So usually if I do that with somebody and they don't get overly emotional, it's because they are presenting facts. Like if I'm like pushing back, if I'm being that, contrarian, the devil's advocate, and presenting the other side, and they're not getting emotional and they're just saying, well, there's this and there's this and there's this, like Taylor does whenever I do it to him. He's like, no, Mike, you're wrong. It's this, and this. And it's like, okay, it's your basis is, it's logical. It's not flawed. It's, based in fact. But if somebody starts getting emotional and yelling and, doing personal attacks and things, and not Jeff wasn't doing that, but if somebody starts doing that, then that usually means they have a very weak basis for their belief, because they have nothing to base it on other than their emotions.
Well, if you use the context that people are controlled by group, consciousness, group thought, kind of the hive thing, the egregore idea. I like using that word because it gets people all like, ooh, what is that? But if you get caught up in that thing, you got to understand, the more that you get them emotional, the more they get ingrained into that belief system. You're effectively doing the opposite. There's actually a story in the apocryphal writings about Christ that I love. I wish it was actually in the Bible, but it's in the apocryphal writings. Those are the writings that were taken out by the Catholic Church for whatever reason. Maybe it was, some of them I think are good. They were taken out because I'm like, this looks made up. But this story I really like. And it was Christ was in the market with Peter, James, and John. And this lady was just losing it, just going berserk. And Peter was like,
did she have purple hair?
Yeah. What she had dyed her hair purple. No,
she was the first liberal.
Yeah. And Peter was like, what evil spirit has overtaken her? And Christ said nothing. He just walked up to her and stared. It said he stared into her, and she just went calm. He didn't say a word, and then he walked away. And they're like, how'd you do that? It was like almost magic. They felt like, and he explained this idea that like, sometimes you just have to be present with somebody and like, just be there. And my wife would always say this before I read this. And she would always be like, I don't want you to solve my problem. I just want you to listen. And cause I'd always be like, well, this is what you need to do.
That's
they hate when you have a solution, dude. Never bring up a fucking solution ever.
No,
do not.
Yeah. Women hate that shit. Yeah. It's,
just do the solution. That's what I've learned. It's just like, just go do the solution and then nod and wave at the emotions. That's what I've kind of learned.
What I learned is to preface the conversation. Are you looking to just, vent and, or are you wanting us before they get going? Because if they're just like, I just need somebody to listen. All right, cool. I'll just listen. But if they say I'm looking for a solution, it's like, all right, well then don't get upset when I come up with a solution.
Yeah, but like, but it's hard for men because we never do that to each other. Like we never just sit there and like listen. We're always talking back and forth about concepts and ideas and different things like that. But it is very powerful when you are just present with a person and listen. And you can watch someone go from very upset and they just slowly just temper down and they completely lose that whatever energy that got them all riled up.
Jeff, I'm here and I'm present for you.
Jesus.
And so,
Oh,
but it has a good thing. So let's wrap up our Civil War talk here.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
okay. So these are the four kind of things that I would say if you're wanting as a society for us to come back together, first you need to uphold the laws against the most powerful. That is the key. Like you have to demand, no matter, even if it's your party, like you have to stop this. Well, Bill Clinton did this or Trump did this. I want them all prosecuted if they've done crimes.
Mm-hmm.
I want the laws actually enforced. And most importantly, I want the laws enforced upon the elite. I'm more understanding and forgiving to those that are struggling in society. But I want the law thrown at those in powered positions. We have to get back to what the Constitution originally wanted, which was decentralization of power.
Mm-hmm.
That is only going to happen. I think you're going to need a constitutional amendment to do that. And so I'm hoping that will come forth where things like term limits are put into place.
Yep.
In addition to term limits would be that Congress cannot do insider trading. I'd actually would require that Congress, while they are a Congress member or a president, have to invest all their money in U.S. treasuries. That way they are beholden to the dollar and what it does. And so devaluing the dollar harms them. You need to force transparency, which is great. I don't think people understand there are good people working right now. That's why you have the Epstein files.
Yeah.
Is there people fighting and they're trying to get this information to you. And so don't think that it's all lost. There are good people fighting behind the scenes and they got you that information. And you need to find out who are those people and support them that are in Congress currently and be like, okay, people like Thomas Massey, who he has put himself on the line. We should support guys like him. And if he's endorsing people, listen to what he's saying, and, you need to become what we kind of been talking about for a while now is you got to reject this chaos. Like violence does not, violence is not going to breed the peace that you ultimately want. It usually just replaces elite structures with other corrupt elite structures. Don't sit there and rile people up and get them angry. You're just going to enforce them into their belief systems even farther. Okay. Be very patient with people, be understanding, listen to what they have to say, and ultimately the only way that you really come out of this is what the Constitution. We, the people, have to want a better union, a better society. And we can do that. But, you need to voice your opinion. You need to say things like when you disagree in a very respectful manner. I don't think that is correct. And so, but ultimately, it's at the end of the day, it's, avoid any kind of division. We want to unify, but also stand firm by your principles. Like if you believe something is wrong, say it. Let people know, like, I don't believe that's the right way. But you can do that in a very respectful manner. And things that give you a lot of negative emotion, that's probably a sign that that's probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
If something's constantly, if politics are always making you upset, distance yourself from politics. Like, it's kind of a interesting thing that happens. Get off of it. Like one of the best things, like I said, was when I finally distanced myself from sports, like sporting teams.
Yeah. You were very passionate about sports.
I'd be screaming at the TV. I'd be
Every BYU game, even though they sucked, like every BYU game.
Exactly. They made me miserable. The 49ers made me miserable. Like everyone, and I was just like, one day I was just like, why do I even care? And then I realized you got to get off these messaging boards. You got to get off, this and that. And because for some reason it has you, and it's liberating when you get away from the stuff that's controlling you and make, it just like, it's hard because it's also the thing that you enjoy. So it's like, it's like that double-edged sword that you guys like, well, I don't have anything else.
Well, it's that endorphin hit, it's why people doom scroll. It's, it's why people freaking are into sports. It's, why.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because Jeff, I want to believe we can get to the place that you said.
I'm Taylor. Jeff, the other dude.
Yeah.
I'm not in front of the computer. All right, let me ask you a question. Are we on the path of a decentralized government or financial system? And if we're not, is there anything tangible that you feel is leading us towards a decentralized fair system?
Yeah, I believe ultimately that I believe like what Thomas Campbell explains in the book is that the universe is a conscious universe. We live in a conscious universe, and we are consciousnesses ourselves, and it always opens a door. And it appears to me that the door that's opening to us right now is that we don't have to be ruled by people. We have built technology that is sufficient that we can take the power away from people, and that we can now use basic math and different things to be fair. But the problem's going to become right now, you see the fight is, oh yeah, we're going to use crypto, but we're going to control it.
Yeah.
And the reality of everything is Bitcoin is proven. You don't have to have people controlling it.
No.
And it's, of course, it's a little chaotic now. Right now, it's causing us a lot of anxiety and stuff. But when you believe in something, I think it's the window. Like I do not believe ultimately on the far end, robotics will be a bad thing. I think it's going to be the most freeing thing for humanity if we actually had robots doing hard labor that we can't do. But just like anything.
So is it AI that you see as the tangible thing happening, leading us towards a decentralized fair future?
I think AI ultimately it is our only hope to get power away from elites. Is if you had AI actually enforcing law versus humans enforcing law, the problem is who controls the AI. And
and that's the answer that I'm trying to lead us to is it's not anyone that gives a fuck about humanity that is behind these things. I mean, Elon Musk is like trying to build out planetary change and go to Mars because he thinks this place is cooked. Sam Altman building bunkers, total effective altruist, looks at humans as locusts. And if you look at humans on a statistical basis from AI perspective, is going to look at a human as a net negative, a net puller from the environment. And if AI is only looking at what materials it needs to self-replicate to build out further infrastructure, they're not looking at the emotional connection that makes humans make irrational, love-based decisions to protect humanity in of itself. Because oftentimes, those decisions are net negative to resources. And if you're an AI looking at the system from a statistical point of view, you're not going to look at humans as a useful resource. And so I don't see a single entity that is looking towards humanity with love. I do not see any of these systems with a heart built. What is?
God.
God is not building an AI program. Like, it's humans. And that's my point here is like, I want to believe that we can get to where you guys are saying we can go. I literally do. But what's going on right now is Congress is max extracting their insider trading as much wealth as they possibly can before they reset the system and cause absolute civil unrest. It's not up to us. It's up to them. As long as we allow them to be in power, it is up to them. That is the brutal truth of the situation.
Yeah, I believe though that the door is open for us, but yes, we have to walk through it. I personally believe that humans are flawed on one scale of wanting power and money. And if we can somehow get that part taken out, that money and like ultimately decision making in certain heavy situations can be done by some mathematical computation versus a bunch of people deciding it, that we can get to a far better society than we currently have created. But ultimately, I think when a door opens, the universe doesn't control it, we do. And so very much can become what Drew is talking about. It's a world where the elite control everything, and now they have more power. And now they have robots, and now they have the AI, and now they have all these other things.
Well, as far as AI, a lot of, and it's yet to be proven, but a lot of crypto projects, AI crypto projects, because crypto or blockchain is immutable and trustless and all this stuff. People talk about potentially using it to augment AI to ensure that people can't manipulate it. That it's that the information that it is using to come to its conclusions is fully transparent and it can be audited, so that if, say, an AI was running the government, then any one of us as a a citizen could look at it if it passed a law and see what case law it based it off of, or what information it based that decision off of, so that we could basically fact check it and make sure that somebody behind a wizard behind a curtain pulling levers wasn't basically telling the AI, and it was like an illusion of an AI, and it was actually the same people still in power. So, and I'm not saying that crypto can do that, but there is that that thought process that it could be used for that.
Yeah, and ultimately, if you look at our humans have only been around for max is 500,000 years of the history of the universe. We're not a necessary part of it. Ultimately, God may decide that, or whatever you want to call it, the universe, whatever term you want to put, the human experiment is done. And maybe it replaces us with AI or something else. But that's the thing is, there's no guarantees. That's the point of life, is like it's a opportunity for us to grow and to move forward. But there's no guarantees to us. There's nothing ever said, oh, humanity is going to exist for the rest of this universe existence. Now, ultimately, then it comes down to, well, do you believe that you're something other, or are you just this physical body? Well, if you're just this physical body, you're going to be dead within the next 100 years anyway. So, enjoy the ride as it goes. If not, if you're more than that, then, maybe you should be focusing now on that part that's more than your physical body, and go, hey, there's more to this than there is. But ultimately, I want to put it out there. I don't believe there's any guarantees that this is going to work out for us. And, I don't see this system of constant violence and hate working. You kick me off, man?
No,
it's just you now.
Oh, holy shit. Oh, I must hold on.
Your ego get that big?
No, yeah. I'm like, it's all about me. No, I was typing. I guess one of the keys I hit was a hot key to freaking change the screen.
Yeah. So, did I ever tell you the time I did shrooms and some of my buddies Egregore?
I don't think so.
So me, Jeff, and my friend, I won't put his name out there. We went and we did shrooms and started to get started to see all these religious images and figures in my head. And I was like, yeah, I'm hitting it. It's like, I'm going on a good trip.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I left my body and I was in the other room where my friend was. And there was this thing hovering over him. And I was like, so I like get up and I'm like, what the heck was that? So I like walk in the room and I open up the door and I'm like, dude, hey, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. I go, is anything happening? He goes, no, nothing. I'm just sitting here. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like, okay, don't be weird, Taylor. I know you just took this. I know you just did a heroic dose. Just go back and lay down. And so I was laying down, enjoying it. Boom. I'm right back in the room. I'm standing right next to him. I see this thing and it's just hovering over him. And I'm like, what the heck is it? So I get up, I walk in the room and I'm like, hey man, I know this is going to sound weird, but there's something other than you in here.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And so he like comes out and he's like sitting down. He goes, can you channel it? Can you talk to it? And so I'm like, I'll try. And so I lay down and I close my eyes and it's like hovering over me.
Yeah.
And it's just like looking right at me. And it can't speak English, but it can communicate through like images.
Yeah.
And so I asked it like a ton of questions. Maybe some other time we went through, because my friend, I'm like, okay, ask any question you want to it. It can talk to me.
Yeah.
And so like the first question was, where did it come from? And then it showed me, I'm standing on a porch. There's a giant tree. There's a dirt road that comes up to it. And he goes, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's an event that happened in my childhood.
Mm.
And then we just went through and it was like, it explained. And I was like, well, what are you? And it's like, well, I'm a part of him that broke off. And I have to feed on him in order to
survive.
Mm. But I cause him a lot of pain. And this individual suffers from a lot of depression.
Yeah.
And I was just like, so I tell him and he's like, well, what is it trying to do? And so we basically went through this whole thing, but it was a crazy experience. It really pissed me off because I was having such good trip. And then all of a sudden
you got sucked into his negativity. You're like, what the fuck?
I got sucked into your egregore or whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
Like talking to it the whole time. And I was like so bummed out when we were done, like 3 hours later. I was just like, because it kind of just faded away. And I was like,
Well, Taylor, we need to do like another episode, talking about some of your experiences, because you have like some pretty epic experiences like that. Like, I'm not sure which ones that you're, comfortable with sharing, but like when Philip passed and stuff like that. You have you've always been very spiritual, very in tune, spiritually, and so I think that helps you out. You're more open to it. But, that instance that you're talking about, that entity that, feeds off him, I think that's a huge part of healing. Is I think that it happens to all of us. We have events in our lives that, impact us both positively and negatively. And, to heal from those negative things, I think you really have to deal with those things and reintegrate them into, who you are, because otherwise they feed off of you like a leech. And they drain you, physically and emotionally and mentally. And, and that's a big part of, different therapies is, becoming comfortable and accepting things. Acceptance is a very, very big part of healing, just accepting things for, again, not living in the past, accepting them for what they are, things that happened, yes, traumatic, yes, hurtful, but things that happened, you can't change it. Accepting it, learning from it, making it part of you, in a positive way, finding a way to make it a positive, turning a negative into a positive, and then moving forward. And I think that is a huge part of, of that.
Yeah. So a comment was, maybe that's why meditation is so good. I started meditating 3 years ago. I do it an hour every day now because I had an experience where I came out of my body. And at that point, about 3 years ago, I was pretty close to being completely atheistic at the moment. And then that kind of shocked me out of, I had some experiences that were pulling me back, because after I lost my religious beliefs, it became very hard for me to believe, because I had tied God to my religion so much. And meditation has been a great thing, but
well, meditation is, and it's so simple to do. It's just sitting in silence. You're not distracted by anything. Get away from screens. Get it to, and that's why I love it out here so much. I do it a lot. Down by the creek. Taylor's experienced my little special place down there.
It's beautiful.
It is. But yeah, just sit down there, listen to
Great
the water.
place for shrooms.
Yeah. But yeah, just sitting down there in silence, just the energy, the positive energy that's around there, the water, there is like a frequency, it's why most people are drawn to water. I mean, we're, majority of us are made of water. But just sitting there in silence, and that voice, that Taylor talks about in your head, being able to focus and actually hear that voice so that you can process what it's saying is powerful, because if without that, it's this constant, nagging that's in the back of your mind that's influencing you. You need to know what that voice is saying so that you can reject, in a lot of ways, reject what it's telling you to do. If you're not, it's just that subliminal message that's constantly saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And you're not even going to know it. And you're gonna start listening to it. So you need that self-reflection. You need that inward reflection so that you can process, everything. So
yeah. So like when I started meditation, my whole kind of thing was, because I came out of my body, and it was learning how to do that. And I started to have a lot of out of body experience. But I'll tell you, the best meditation is when I learned that, like, you can do that. Just do it now. You got to get away from everything. You got to try to silence that voice in your head as much as you can. You don't do it by telling it to shut up. You just become aware that it's separate from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then focus your attention in your body, and scan your body with your attention, and focus on your body until you feel something, and then focus on that feeling. And there's a statement that Christ made. I never understood it until I started doing this type of meditation. He said, the light of the body is the eye. When thy eye is single, thy body will be full of light. And it literally sometimes comes to me like I almost think I'm giving off light. Mm-hmm. And I never understood what he meant until I focused that eye, the awareness,
the third eye,
on the body. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, and I've done this with every one of my kids. I've done with my wife, everybody that I've come across so far. Some people, it takes a little bit longer because their voice is really loud in their head. And people who are usually struggling with a lot of, painful things, it takes a little bit longer. But within 10 minutes, they're like, I feel it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you realize very quickly, well, I've never felt that before. And I don't think I have nerve endings there. So it's something.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the best changes. Now, when I meditate, I'm not trying to go to the astral plane and, travel around and see and things like that. But I just do that. And it's a life-changing thing if you learn how to do it.
Well, I think a lot of it, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think just from my experiences, I think a lot of it is not focusing externally so much. It's focusing internally. And again, it goes back to that sphere of influence I keep talking about, where, this vessel or, this body that we have is ultimately the only thing that we can control. our actions, our thoughts, our words, things like that. And that's why it's so powerful, to be a strong man or a strong woman, and and be a positive influence to those around you, in society, in your inner circle, your family, whatever it is you know and then what Taylor was talking about the third eye, a lot of religions talk about it, chakras, the third eye, that's they believe it's the pineal gland. You can hear a lot of people talk about this, and being able to just have that singular focus and focus on that eye that Taylor's talking about. It really does. I mean, it's a transformational process, to be able to focus in on that and eliminate the noise, the white noise, that's constantly around you. If you can step away just for 10 minutes and do what Taylor's talking about, and if you do it long enough, it's not going to, maybe it won't happen the first time, but make it a part of your ritual. Make it, when you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, do whatever, just take 10 minutes, do it for, 30 days, do it for 14 days, make a conscious effort to make it part of your schedule, to where you sit down, and I can't stress enough. I mean, I teach this in a lot of different ways, the power of a schedule, that repetition, things become a habit, good and bad, through repetition. If you do things in repetition, and it builds discipline, it builds focus, and you're able to structure things, and things are less overwhelming. If you're not just constantly running around chasing, trying to put out fires and things like that, it gets rid of that anxiousness. If I get up, I brush my teeth. After that, I meditate. After that, I go make my coffee, my tea. After that, I go to work. And if you have that repetition, it makes life a lot easier. So that's my final thoughts. What do you got?
Now I got you. I will stress to you, it will be the most life-changing thing when you can learn that you can go in your body, you can focus your attention in there, and you can literally cause an energy to form within you, and it energizes you. I wake up at 4 o'clock every morning because I spend an hour doing it every morning, because it is an incredible life-changing thing. And if you were to, I have ADHD, so it's like, you would explain to me as a kid, I could sit for a whole hour and do that. I'd have been like, you're crazy. I can't sit and do anything for more than a few minutes. But you have to develop kind of it's a little bit of a skill set to be able to do it. When I try to explain to people, put a timer on and just like put a candle, or put a mask on, just be in darkness, in the sense of
put a zipper mask on.
you want to limit visual stimulation. I put eye things on because you're trying to limit your visual and audio. Audio is okay. Like, I have to listen to either binaural beats or music or something, because my ADHD will not let me focus unless I have some audio going. But binaural beats work for me in doing that, and some good meditation music. But the key is like, stop visual input. Don't try to see things. Try to feel things in you.
Mm-hmm.
And me, I was always trying to see things. I want to go play. I want to do it. And I was like, I was missing the whole point.
Yeah. And
it's like, oh, you have this ability. So far, I've met anybody who seriously do it. Some take a little bit longer than others. They all seem to be, everybody seems to be able to do this. That's it. That's all I have.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody showing up. Got the whole crew here. And yeah, like I said, this was just kind of like a little bit of an emergency stream. I know that it was maybe a little bit clickbaitish with the second Civil War coming. I wasn't sure what Taylor was wanting to talk about. But
it is. It's just, how's it going to turn out?
Exactly.
We get to choose.
So yeah, no, if you could, if you're new here, if you could follow, like the stream, if you liked what it is that we had to say, but maybe we'll do this from time to time. I actually really enjoy it whenever it's just me and you talking.
That's the cat that showed up so I was when we did shrooms out on his island. his little island. I'm like, I keep seeing this cat. Michael didn't have a cat at the time. And then how long after did that cat show up?
It was pretty much right after you guys left.
Yeah. It was the weirdest thing. He's like, oh, this cat just showed up. And but it was the weirdest thing. I'm like, I don't know why I keep seeing a cat.
And I just kept telling him, I'm like, you're probably seeing mountain lions and you just think you're tripping out. No, she calms me down quite a bit. You know, our whole family has ADHD, you know, but you know, the dog that I had, I always felt anxious because he just was so much energy, you know, he just put off so much energy. I was just constantly like, oh, fuck. And so yeah, having a cat is much more therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
You know, she calms me down. Anytime I start to get like too anxious or, you know, too wound up, she like, it's almost like she knows. She'll like come over and, you know, jump on my lap, or, you know, she'll come over and start purring and, you know, try to cuddle with me and stuff like that. So yeah, I freaking love her.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, everyone have a great day. Have a great rest of your weekend. And please, you know, what we were talking about meditation, take 10 minutes, you know, right now or sometime today, sit down, find a dark, quiet place, sit down, you know, kneel, sit, whatever, makes you comfortable, lay down and just do what Taylor was talking about. And, you know, try to do it daily, you know, and again, try to build yourself a schedule. You know, I cannot stress enough, you know, how powerful it is, and being able to check things off, you know, checklists, you know, it's little endorphin bumps of, you know, being like, I accomplished something. Okay. Next. Okay. I accomplished that. Such a powerful tool. But anyway, take care. Till next time, Veteran Crypto out.